Hello, everyone.
Hello,
Um,
everyone. Nice meeting you.
we're probably allowing one more minute for everybody to join. We're quite curious from where you are joining today. Would you mind sharing in chat your locations from which you're listening to us today? Oh, nice.
Okay, so we've got quite a range there.
What a scope. I see Amsterdam, Dubai, Munich, Budapest, Estonia, Prague, and Wrocław.
All good cities, all perfect cities.
We're all over the world today, and Stockholm. Beautiful. Today, the purpose of our meeting, the purpose of our session is to talk about Rovo and particularly about various use cases across the org where Rovo can come helpful. Who we are. Definitely is long-standing Atlassian partner. We're together for 19 years now. Quite a backlog of conducted migrations, 330 experts on board. We pride ourselves in the fact that we do not have any rollbacks. We're going with Jira to production yet. Today with you is two of those 330 people on board of Divinity. My name is Michał Kułakowski. I lead a service strategy department here, and with me is Adam.
And my name is Adam, as already mentioned. I am the leader of the Atlassian consultants team at Divinity, and I am the solution designer for the Atlassian tools as well. So whenever Michael teams sells anything or we collaborate with the customer, we are the team who is responsible for delivering it and applying it successfully.
You will keep me at check, so now I'm not drifting away today. Please stay with us till the end of this webinar because we have a little surprise for you. I will not tell you what is it because it's a surprise. And the draft and the agenda for today is we'll talk about what Rovo is first. Then we will spend a minute on integrations because as with every data orchestration product, the value you're getting directly depends on the data you shuffle into it. And from there, we'll jump directly into specific scenarios. We'll talk sales, we'll talk marketing, HR, finance. And once we complete that round, we'll talk a little bit about how do you get ready for Rovo. As for every project, you need certain foundation, certain conditions in place. And from there, we'll jump to Q&A and our little surprise. So what is the problem we're trying to solve? Well, the more tools we have, and today we have a lot of them in every business environment, the biggest the drag they really put on our work. It's the dark side of the moon here because every tool increases productivity, but it also takes a toll. And the first thing is context switching. Human brain is not really programmed for moving in between different windows, changing context. It has a hidden cost that is really decreasing our attention. The second thing is the Pareto rule in terms of searching for information. It's 80, 20, probably 80% of questions relate to 20% of topics. And every organization answers those questions repeatedly, creating a possibility for mistake. Answering partially, answering in an incorrect way, or repeating something that is not 100% correct. So that's one of the areas that every AI, Rovo in particular, can help optimize. And finally, the silent data paradigm. Whoever has been ever searching in Slack for the answer knows what I'm talking about. It's like you're looking for something, you know it's there, but which channel, where, who said that, how do you really get there? It is difficult. So the matter of indexing data and making sure that we find it. And this all really boils down to three activities that we expect the agent to do. Finding information in a reliable way, summarizing information. Sometimes we know what the information is, but it's a ton of it, and getting down to the facts is difficult in a limited of time. And then finally, the most powerful part, which is acting upon the information on behalf of the user. This is the big promise of agentic AI, and Rovo delivers that too. But in order to get there, you need information, and this information lives in various systems. Adam, why don't you tell us about this?
But of course, the thing is, which I'd like to add in here, that even when our teams collaborate in Divinity, we were always struggling at the very beginning to find the context of the particular customers. And finding and sharing the information is a bit of a challenge, which we are going to discuss further into the webinar as well. But the great thing about the tools, and thank you for that smooth transition there, is the fact that it can be integrated with quite a lot of tools that you have on your disposal. So depending if you are using Google Drive, if you are using HubSpot, if you are using SharePoint, Slack, Teams, Salesforce, Gmail, or Loom for that particular, you are eligible to find a way to integrate those tools with each other and to find one unified place where your actions can be automated, your data can be searched through, and overall your communication can be streamlined much easier. That only means that you don't have to have all of this to make it work. It's just an example that depending on your context, the tools that you find preferable and that you use the most, you do not need rewrite your whole organization. You just need to connect the right tools and just make those work much easier for you, depending on what context are you using and with what tools you are working with. And that perfectly aligns with the Atlassian system of work idea. Essentially, whenever you combine your day to day operations, your everyday meetings, your everyday collaboration with other team or departments, your work on customer, your development work, and a lot, you can easily reapply this into the Atlassian ecosystem. And whenever you apply this in a structured manner, you use your workflows, you change your statuses, you build your boards, you build your plans, you apply the Atlassian intelligence layer over it. You use it to help you work with your day-to-day operations, help you writing comments, summaries, write down appropriate data, and when you've got that, then you connect this search, to connect other tools to this environment. So no longer you need to have at the very least 3 monitors to track down your Confluence wiki, to track down your Google Drive. You no longer need 300 tabs to search appropriately. You use one search omni-view and you get appropriate answer from the one place, or help you with digesting this information with the usage of the Atlassian agent, Rovo agent in particular. So I'm giving my voice back to the Michael, since he is sales department head. He is willing to say a lot about it, how it helps his department to work.
I mean, the integrations that you've seen in the previous slide are bring a scenario to me that is very close to my heart. Let's move to the next slide. So imagine when you are running a sales organization, there is a data about the customer that sits in a CRM. I particularly sell services, and these services need to be delivered, and that part sits in Jira. And then you have contracts, which are sitting somewhere in the drive, and then you have meeting recordings that are sitting in Loom, and all that data combined together gives you the 360 view of customer initiatives, where they are, what they said, what they intend, where they're willing to go. Combining that manually is a difficult piece, and I'd like to focus here on one specific example of how can you leverage that intelligence for better sales management. We'll talk about sales coaching. Every sales leader out there has a challenge to make sure that the team operates in a uniform manner, and they are really absorbing the knowledge, the changes in a product portfolio, can express them to the customer. And in this particular case, we're talking about the situation where I want to coach my team on the proper objection handling. Make sure that they are really done constructively in a consultative manner. Prompt for this, I'm pretty simple. And then let's move to the next slide, please. The flow is simple. There's a Loom call recording. And we have an agent that is trained to scan for objections in this call, judge, rate, and coach the sales people on how they handle them. Let's move to the next one. So example call here, which is talking about the value that we can extract from Atlassian tools. By the way, we have an entire webinar about our offering helping you extract that value. That's a side topic. And here the customer says, why it is so expensive, especially since we don't seem to be getting anything extra. We'd really like to hear the reasoning behind that. It's a trigger. It lets the agent know, scanning through this script, that we have a situation. Next one, please. And the answer from the salesperson is defensive. They essentially says, like, everybody else is raising the prices. That is way to handle this question, but it's not good enough. It does not give us extra information. Sales is about curiosity. It's about understanding the mindset of a customer on the other end of a table. So let's move to the next one. What Rovo can do for us based on that prompt, it does the rating of that, 2.5 out of 5, fair enough. But it also knows what is missing in this particular sentence. And when we move to the next one, it can coach the salesperson to better address this one. So thank you for being open, sharing this concern. That's empathy. We understand where you are with this. Which particular areas you feel that you're not getting enough value? How can we understand that better? That is the proper answer, and the way to make sure that we have on the spot coaching deployed.
And thank you very much, Michael, for this. I just want to add to this, since some of you might already have noticed that I am even in some of those questions and the examples. But the great thing about this is that it's not only applicable for the sales department and for suggesting the better answers for them, it is also a very useful tool for them to provide the consultants that are working with those customers a lot with a better feedback, more structured way. We can take it personally, but if we get it from the agent in a structured manner, we see what we've done wrong for the particular conversation. And the great thing about this, we do also do a lot of transcriptions and conversations for our customers, even outside the initial sales calling. So getting this information and providing sales team with this feedback truly streamlines the process. They are used to writing all of this down manually, and they can do it fairly fast and efficient. But we, as technicians, usually, we do lack that skill and purpose. With that, we streamline this process a lot, make it way more efficient, and actually provide them with valuable feedback. So it's a great example of how can we collaborate on that. But let's move on to the marketing.
Brother is watching both of us, Adam. Do we want to not?
Exactly. And now we are talking how we don't have to talk anymore. We just send the looms and records from the agents right now. So it's way better and more efficient. But taking a look at the marketing case, when it comes to the marketing, the main issue is with the fact that you, for example, need to take care of the particular lead. You did a great job with your campaign. You did a great job with reaching out. You got this deal. You think you've got it in the bag, but in the end, it was lost. It was market loss within the system. And now to get all of the necessary information, okay, so why did it happen? You need to go through the marketing mail conversation. You need to go through your campaign. You need to go through the chat. You need to go and discuss this with the sales rep. And then even after you get these interviews and information, you still need to put it in somehow readable and structured form and use it on your day-to-day, weekly basis for that report. So what we are looking for here is to streamline the process and automate the process of gathering the information from different channels and sources and people, which is very important, and gather this under one place so that we can read this on the weekly basis. And for that reason, we are building a flow in which the agents regularly generate a certain flow and works once a week, gather the information from the transcripts, mail, notes that you got from the customers. He can take a look at this very efficiently. You've seen that it can be connected, integrated with the HubSpot, for example, or Salesforce or Jira. And of course, it can take a look at your transcriptions. And when it got that information, it is able to extract this in the structured form and provide you with a very useful material for your weekly sessions to discuss what's been happening for the past week. You no longer need to do this manually. You, of course, still need to take a look at this before the actual meeting, but the amount of job that you need to do is way lessened. The prompt for this needs to be focusing on the structuring it properly so that we get the information in a way that it can be useful and in a way that we would like to have it inside our Confluence space. And as a result, you are going to get the nicely inclined and structured information about the particular lead. So in essence, you no longer need to write this down manually and browse through all of this information. You get that from your sources. You get that from these conversations, natural and organic ones. And of course, in here, you are also going to get a link to the Confluence space. So for everyone out there who has been writing down manually spaces in Confluence and pages in Confluence, now you can have the contents, the need, the templates automatically generated, and you have something to work with. You focus on your job, and now you no longer need to you no longer need to manually generate everything, and you've got a nice baseline for your actions for the next week. So that brings us to finances. Sales always needs to focus on the finances. So I believe Michael is going to be the best pick to discuss this topic.
Yeah, we do expenses, and expenses are hard because even though policies for expenses typically sit in one place, it's a lengthy document, and we're in a rush. So here, the problem we're addressing is I have a specific question. I want to know if I can expense something, and I want the agent to help me understand what are the conditions for that. Ask side questions if necessary, and then give me the answer. Let's move forward. The prompt for this, the flow for this is pretty simple. The agent knows where in Confluence those policies are living, and I'm asking the question. I get the qualification. I get a yes or no, or yes under condition. Um, Here is the prompt. Fairly straightforward thing, just putting some boundaries around that, how deep this discovery should go. It requires integrating with Confluence, Rovo, and Jira in this particular example, and I'll show you why Jira is there. First example, simple question, can I expense airport parking? And because Rovo knows from Confluence that the requirement for this is that the parking needs to be at the date of a registered travel, it will ask me for those days, verify that, and give me the answer. Interesting thing on this screenshot is that you're getting the links to the actual travel policy. So I can actually validate if the agent is not hallucinating, if that is real. It gives me the proof. That's the policy based on which you're getting this answer. Another one, I need a subscription. So the agent goes to the policy and asks a couple questions who are parameterizing that: annual, monthly, auto renewal, new vendor or existing. I answer those and I get a specific answer. It tells me that I will need an approval, and it tells me how to go further and create a request for this. In the next example, we'll go even farther. I missed my monthly deadline. I shouldn't, but it happens. And I ask, how do I submit the expenses now? And Rovo knows that the exception is needed for this because that's by the policy. And after asking some qualification questions, it would actually create the ticket for me, gathering all the necessary information and put it there. It is a great example because it is making that impersonal experience of creating a ticket or filling a form. It makes it more personal, more conversational. It makes it a part of the usual experience. Now, why is it important? We're living in times where the generation of me and Adam, we are used to clicking, we're used to forms, but there is a younger generation entering the workforce right now, and there's still the part of the older generation who never got used to that interface, never got used to really clicking. Conversation is natural. We learn it when we are 3 years old. And since there, we basically use conversational interface with everybody around. This is much more personal way of doing things versus filling forms. And I think that's a big advantage, especially for those generational segments that are using ChatGPT natively in their day-to-day as their day-to-day interface to the world. By applying this principle here, we are essentially building ChatGPT for work.
And in addition to that, when we there's a little bit of a local context at the very least, it is very hard to talk about money. Like I don't like there is a certain principle or a little bit of holdback to discuss this with your colleague, to discuss this in general. With that tool, we are more freeing and we do not feel that pressured to asking those questions and we get an appropriate structured answer, as Michael said. Which brings us actually to the HR case when it comes to that, because when we take a look from the human resources and what we need to deal with, sometimes the usual scenario, the one that I've been recently been encountering with, especially when you expand your teams, is with the fact whenever there's a new hire, there's a lot of questions that you would like to ask and sometimes you're not sure to what to ask about. You get a lot of information, you get a lot of background info. I've been working for Divinity for quite a long time, so I know a lot of things by head, and I can get it almost immediately. But when you start here, there's a lot of documentation to be processed, a lot of processes to do. You are not that sure of the structure within your organization. And that's where this Rovo and this chat can help you with, because now you can get a tool that would allow you to discuss this briefly, converse with it and do not feel uncomfortable about asking those questions, even if they seem simple. The important thing about this prompt is that you need to, of course, reapply the name of your own organization. And if you're really looking forward to find it useful and successful for your organization, you just need to do appropriate link for the feedback. We need to track down if those people are actually getting the help they are in need for. And of course, we need to have somehow measurable of that. So appropriate survey for that. Anonymous, of course, we leave the option for them to not sign their name under it. And you can see that it's going to improve dramatically. And why are we discussing those cases? Also, the fact is, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the integrations are quite extensive. But the case that we are going to discuss today was based on the work of Dominic Williamson for the NORA, from the NORA. And essentially, those agents were able to connect to their own HR policies, onboarding guides, product documentations, and many more things that you are probably all well aware of. And thanks to that, that this database is being kept updated on almost a basis, then that means your agents are going to provide the best information available for your end users, which is great because whenever you've been working with human HR representatives, they need to update, they need to work on that. Even for them, it's a great help. And it's a great help for self-service for anyone who's been hired into the organization. Which, of course, brings us to the examples. The example is, and it might sound simple too, like if you are working there for quite some time, you know exactly when you get paid, what are the pay period, what are the ranges. But when you're starting, you might not be sure about this. In this case, when you ask this question, you got a structured answer about the pay ranges. And besides that, agent is going to know based on your information, your profile, and your role, and when you are stationed, that gets from other systems in your organization, your exception. So it's not only about asking the right question, it also sees the context and gives you a detailed information. Something that you might be aware of, like, for example, the fact that when you are working remote, your salary might differ and the bonuses might differ. The same goes for the structuring. When you are looking for the answer, or you would like to know who is the vice president of the engineering department, you are going to get that answer. But besides that, the system will remind you about the policies that you have currently in place and about the fact that you do not necessarily DM this vice president about anything that you would like to ask. There's a certain order for that. So usually when it comes to certain cases based on your organization policy, you should ask your manager, use the different channel. or overall try to different approach. So once again, context matters and it's giving you that. So that really lessens the amount of workload or messages that your VPs or head of departments are in need of answering. And of course, last but not least, when it comes to the benefits, we are sometimes wary of what do we have, what are we accounted for. If you are scared to ask once again your leader about this or your HR rep, then you got this chat message to bring you this information. And as in the case of the salary, it also gives you the context for your role and for example, about your seniority in the company. All valid and depending on how your company manages that. And that when we talked about marketing, sales, finance, HR, it would be a great place, Michael, I believe, to discuss how it can work cross-functional in that case.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a little bit higher level, but the value grows as you move across the org, connecting people to do better work together. This one is also touching on sales, but in a different way. The question we're addressing here is which content should be attached to the follow-up message after the meeting with the customer. And it's an typical 80-20 question. 80% of the cases we basically same usual material, but sometimes the questions relate to more rare occasions. Maybe we need a reference for a specific use case, specific work being done. To quote, to make sure that the customer feels comfortable with the level of trust that is they're giving to us. And for this, we need a thorough understanding of what is available. Next one, please. So the flow here is that the agent looks through a Loom call, finds content that would be relevant to the contents of that call, figures them out. And if the content does not exist, it can create a content gap brief, send it to marketing, and ask for creating such content. Next one, please. Prompt is, again, pretty concise. And in here, in the example, we're seeing 4 pieces recommended, and basically even suggested in a certain sequence that the customer could get them in. Interesting aspect of this, in context of creating that the gap manifesto, is that every marketing department out there is working under a huge backlog. And we are moving from the perspective of opportunity. So giving the marketer the context, what is the value of that opportunity, which stage we're in, helps them prioritize this request, put that in context. Is this something that is relating to the opportunity that will happen half a year down the road? Or is this something that we're in the final stage and we really needed to tip the scale and convince the customer to our favor? Interesting way of applying non-judgmental prioritization into that backlog.
And the great thing about this, which I'm going to put the slide back in once again, as Michael have said, like all of these things, they are being reapplied over different people within our organization. And whenever we need to take a look at this, because we need an access to our workflow, each department representative has an access to it. And more importantly, you can have very easy way to retrace down what was the, for example, lead road within our company? What did we operate from? What are the marketing materials? And now, instead of doing this manually, all of us have this in one nicely structured place, and Rovo takes care of that. So about the setup there, which I am going to mention, and which refers to the point that I just made with Michael. The thing is, when you are using this tool, when you are setting this up, you need to pick what tools you are using, obviously. In our example, for the example of the consultants team and Divinity, since we are collaborating a lot on Google Drive, we are working on the Gmail as well. When we've connected those tools to, of course, our already existing Atlassian database and Atlassian information that we got, we extended greatly the amount of information that we could gather, but also we were able to structure and amplify all of the context that we have for different customers. That means that whenever we are collaborating now, and we are mostly using the Atlassian ecosystem for that purpose, now when we want to take a look about the history of working with this customer, when we want to take a look about the promises, information, exchange of data that came even before we take a deal or we take a look at this example for the actual implementation, we can see exactly what Michael's team members were talking about, get the exact information that we need. We can take a look at marketing works towards this customer. What did they see and what did were they promised during the landing pages conversation or even during the chat conversation? And now we no longer need to jump around different tools to find this. We use one place for that purpose. We search for this information, we structure it, and we put it directly into our tickets with the 1, 2 clicks at most. And of course, as you've seen in our examples, with appropriate links. So there is no risk for hallucinating that. And we can work in multiple languages as well. And if necessary, we can extract the exact information that we need with all of the context, which sometimes is important because asking questions is one thing, but asking the right question is the other. And that's where the strength of this setup lies within, because it can get us this context. And if we train them properly, set them properly, we are always going to get the information that we need. And even if you are new consultant on my team, the agent is going to help you greatly with sharing what the senior would be looking for this particular customer. And that goes for every department in your organization. Therefore, the example is as it is. When it comes to the tooling, you can use it from the different purposes. You can work around your video in Loom calls to get your transcriptions, to get your recordings, to get all of the necessary information that you need. When you are working in HR, you need some new documentation to work with templates and important documents. And of course, the same goes for the marketing, who's taking a look at their CRMs and docs that are being attached to the particular customers. So everyone can find something that's going to make their work more efficient and more useful for them. And that's going to benefit the company as a whole. No longer, as they like to say, silos your data.
We see a lot of those use cases flying around, and maybe the hardest part starting is identifying the right one. So many of them end up in the endless POCs, not necessarily for technical reasons. It's very seldom that technology is the blocker. It is all about securing the right buy-in, making sure you have a right way of measuring success, and eventually also making sure that once the success is there, adoption flows in. That is the place where we have our surprise for you. What we propose is use case prioritization and readiness check. This long, mysterious name really refers to a 1-hour session where we sit together, talk about your organization, understand the data readiness, understand the value, understand the data sources, guardrails, compliance aspects, and potentially what are you willing to achieve, how to measure that. The good thing about it is that there's no admin rights required. We're basically talking about organization and processes and data. An even better thing is that this thing is free of charge. If you're interested, drop me an email and we'll take it from there.
That was very important to mention that. We especially bolded out. It's free of charge. It's not a sales call. We talk about the use case and we give you the guidance and the direction that you would like to come with. So it's all focused on you, truly.
And another thing that we'd like to offer here is after this webinar, you will get an invitation to our Knowledge Hub. It's a repo containing this webinar recording and the past ones. So you're getting access to all the knowledge base that we're building this way. I'd like to pick your brain for the next webinar, because we'd like to maybe dive deeper into this area, into some places that are interesting to you. Here are a couple of proposals. Feel free to answer with a number, or if you see something else, just let us know what is the direction you'd like to learn further on our next webinar from this series about Rovo.
Yes, we are perfectly aware that the topics that we've discussed, they only might be scratching the surface what your company is actually doing. So if you would like to have a streamlined focus and really narrow down the possibilities and discuss your exact use case, this is going to be a great guidance for us as well. Which should we be focusing on? What would be the tips and tricks? And essentially the topics that we could expand on a little. So now I believe we are inviting you. Sorry for barging in, Michael. I always tend to do that. This is how we collaborate. We would like to discuss. We would like to go through the Q&A sessions. We've seen that there were quite a lot of questions there, so
A
we'll
little
be
bit,
going with
a little
that.
bit pushy, but yeah, that's appreciated. We have lots of great questions, many of them technical ones. Let me read them out loud, and we'll go through answering as many of them as we can in the remaining time of the session. Is that okay? All right, then. So the first question coming from Radosław is, what are Rovo's limitation today as an agent? Can it act as a collaborator for an admin so that when the admin reads the request from a Jira user to configure a board, add a validator to workflow step, add a new custom field, and the admin agrees to do so, they say, hey, Rovo, handle this, and let me know when you're finished. Adam, can you take this one?
Of course. So in essence, since I'm an admin myself, I would say that you should think about this as the collaborator for the admin, but not in a sense that you are modifying the current schematics, schemes, validators that you are already using within your flow. You apply the principle of the Atlassian intelligence layer there. So it can, for example, automatically utilize some automations that you built in place, utilize the conditions that you are looking for, post functions that you've built previously, but he's going to mostly work around this. This, of course, extends greatly for the scripts that you might have prepared in place or API calls that you have built as well, which it can do. So in essence, you are applying the agent over the actual configuration, and you streamline the way this configuration is launched based on the context. Or if you're looking for it, you can also use the manual switch for that.
There is also a follow-up to this question, which I believe is also rooted in our attempt to understand how do we organize the work in that new AI world, which is what can't Rovo do what a human admin can? How do we make sure we're efficiently using it as Jira owners?
So this is, you can say that it's like a philosophical question there, what the AI can do or can't do. But since we are in the domain of the SaaS applications, I can only tell you that it can build on its own. So therefore, you can't use it that efficiently to build agents, build other agents with agent. It's not the purpose of that tool. It's still the human admin job to take a look at the appropriate prompt configuration and applying to the context of the tools that you have within your organization and integrate that with. But if you're looking or closing the gaps there, or rather what you're looking for in that, we would need to be more specific, because if you're looking at the gaps overall that artificial intelligence has in comparison to the human admin, then this is a whole other topic for the whole other webinar. But when it comes to that, I would like to repeat myself in that context. It can't do this configuration work. Of course, to some extent, it can still generate some preforms for you in Jira Service Management or build some automations for you. But essentially, it cannot judge that efficiently without an appropriate context what you should do in this. You always need at some point a little bit of an approval at your end. It's mitigating the manual work, not doing all of the creative instead of you.
I can only second that. I think in my experience with AI, it's a force multiplier, but it's not great at making judgmental calls on where to go, the directional searching for value. So you're the person who understands the organization best either way, and picking where AI should be deployed is going to be human task for quite some time still. Second question, and this one is actually quite specific. When I link a GDoc or G-sheet in Jira Confluence ticket document, is Rovo using the content of the reference document to build up its answers? So in essence, follow links.
You might have already noticed that I like to speak a lot, but I can answer to this shortly. Yes,
Please.
it can.
All right, fantastic. Next
That's the
question.
answer there. That's the answer there.
Next question coming from Lana. Which languages does this work in? We frequently find that Finnish language document responses aren't supported. Can it work in multiple languages at once? For example, read a conversation in German between an agent and a customer, and also our Confluence written in English.
Yes, it can. This is like the main purpose between the Atlassian platform that it is multi-language supported. And whilst in the whole history of Atlassian, their support for multiple languages was one of the strong points in the history. Also, there's a strong point in the history of making this work for the multiple and different languages. Of course, the ones that you've mentioned, don't you worry, Finnish people, I know you are very special. But this is a case when it works as well. It is a very popular language as well in here. And remember, which I haven't said explicit enough before for the integrations part, you can always connect this to your own LLM models as well. So when it comes to that, you should surely omit the problems with transferring different contexts and working with that. Of course, language still applies. The same problems that you might encounter when you work in different languages still might be a little bit here, but it can work with that, and you can certainly trim out and make it better and better each and every time.
That's a great answer. And I love the next question. It's coming from Valeria, and Valeria is asking how the agent can select the source of truth in Jira and Confluence, and how does not confuse the right sources in case the user questions are not precise. I'd like to chime in on this question because that's
Mhm.
a challenge with every AI deployment out there. If our information that we're giving to AI is contradictory, it will by necessity take AI sideways, and AI will be as confused as we are by reading those documents. So it's a chance to expose that and figure out what is the right answer, but it is our responsibility, at least at this stage, as human designers of this system, and maybe our responsibility as a partner to help you do that, to make sure that we have a sound base of information that we're indexing, and thus this information is not internally contradictory to each other, so that AI can combine all that information by indexing it and make sure that the answers given to the user will be precise. Would you want to add anything to that, Adam?
I believe you covered that perfectly, Michael. Thank you very much.
Thank you
So,
very much.
thank you very much. So I'd like to read the next question so that we can change the pace a little bit. So, it's not like you are interviewing me. I try to interview as well. But this one I would like to answer, unfortunately. The one from Sikhar, can you please tell me the difference between Rovo and RovoDev? And to keep it as simple as possible, you need to think when we discussed Rovo as the tool for agenting coverage for different contexts in the Jira, let's say. So helping building you up your Confluence documentation, running your automations, overall working with the stuff that you've been working on the, let's say, business side of Jira. RoboDev allows you to apply this principle for your software teams. So it can help you with transferring your work description from product owners to the actual codes. It analyzes the code, find you missing areas, find you what would you like to do, adding an appropriate comments, and of course, overall automate the actions between, for example, releasing the request or the feature or overall management of the releases. And you can think about it in that way that it extends what Atlassian Intelligence does over code repositories and what developers are usually using it for. And the next question from Stefan, is it possible to use Rovo to identify duplicate articles in Confluence? What if there are two articles with relevant information? How does Rovo decide which it uses? Uh, so, Michael, would you like to answer that one? It's kind of similar to something about how it differentiated the sources there.
It is way similar. Yes, we can certainly ask AI to help us find a duplicated content candidates. The final judgment will probably be human in this case, because there might be a reason why we're duplicating this context. For example, there might be a process which is different in between two different countries or regions or departments. But in the end of the day, it is our responsibility to judge: is it intentional, or is this something that we want to eliminate? Um, I have a next one, which is tricky. I think it's a layered answer to a simple question. On HR case study, what is your experience with Rovo handling factual information figures correctly? Example, providing accurate numbers on salary information and calculating that.
But before we goes into that, I just had to add one more thing to the previous answer of yours, which is because we've encountered that a lot because we are working with a lot of customers, they have said. And the thing is, in addition to everything that Michael has said about why it can be here, maybe there's a reason for that and the region, the very least, what it does for you, it gives you the information that there is a duplicate because this is a huge problem. That one thing that there are duplicates out there, but the problem is to find them and to find out that, for example, sales department is working on the almost similar page of content about the customer as the marketing or as delivery team or software team. With that, you gather all of this and you are able to merge it out successfully. So now everyone has the same context information. And this is a great thing about this. Even if it sometimes gives you too much, it still allows you to work around this, which is very useful. And to answer to your question, Michael, very sorry for interrupting that. That's my case. I just always need to chime in
First.
when there's an opportunity. When it comes to their experience, it is pretty accurate. Like this data is pretty straightforward. So if you are updating it and you got connected with, depending of course on your workspace settings, or how do you handle your user authentications and user catalogs, and how do you handle the profiles in your organization, and how well, of course, is information about salaries or pay ranges disclosed. Essentially, when you cut that, you got like almost all accurate, almost always accurate answers and descriptions, which is important. If there is anything that shouldn't be disclosed to the end user, such as like an agreement details or anything related to an NDA particular customer, it respects that as well, which is why it is secure. And in that case, when it comes to the personal experience, I often use it to remind myself about the structural changes within the departments, if there are any. And of course, that helps me, as in the case with the HR. If I'm looking for the new VP of engineering, or if I hear some news about changing it directly into the company, I no longer need to bother the HR departments or these people or my colleagues. I just need to ask the chat and I get the proper context information in the department. So I have to say it's pretty useful. The very least to me and for the other organizations that I read as well.
I guess the second part of that answer on a higher architectural level is that the trend towards which we're going as a society is more of a multi-agent networks. So if you have a very specialized case, maybe not quoting salaries, but if you have very specialized calculation to be run, agents can talk to each other as well and ask each other for information. And that is something that we definitely can dive into deeper. Divinity has our own AI model, which is called Bielik, and we're using it for production use cases with other customers already. So if we hit the situation that the logic becomes too complex for a single prompt, you can always separate that and move into the multi-agent network. That's definitely feasible. All right. The next question coming from Charan. Can you connect the agents to Slack? Have the conversation as opposed to Atlassian?
I
Adam.
would love a short answer is yes. I would love to get back at the very first slide, but since it's like 40 slides away, you just need to believe me and take a look at the recording later that you can connect it, you can chat with it, and you can use it for your operations that you do within Slack or outside of Slack, for example, in connection with Jira Confluence.
That's a great answer. And there is the next great question coming from Stefan. Will it be possible to fill existing Confluence templates with placeholders using a Rovo agent?
Yes, Stefan, it is possible. This is how we operate on that. Of course, now I can pull my card of the specialist in tech. It depends, but in most cases, it's going to work. This is, for example, how we fill out the information that comes from the Jira request when we want to build a structured Confluence pages based on that internally. And this is something that has been working for example, post-mortem incidents that are like connected and almost convoluted directly into the incident module for Jira Service Management. So we've got the Atlassian case out of the box almost, and we are also using it internally. So it can work pretty well.
That's great. And Stefan also asks about another thing. Will it be possible in the future to set permissions for a Rovo agent so that I can control who can see and or use the agent?
Yes, you can. You can manage that. It's essentially a very great thing to do about that because we don't want to even have the some. We can kind of granulate how you would like to manage that. Which people should be responsible for generating agents, which ones should be worked upon, and of course, which we would like to share with our team. And this is actually a great question to extend a little bit of something that Michael has mentioned before about agents talking to each other. The great thing about this is the fact that you can use it and scale this. So if, for example, sales team pre-generated, pre-configured an agent and is using it on a daily basis with a proper prompt and anything, they can easily share that with consultants team, and they have the ability not only to share it, but also they are able to not allow us to change it in an any significant way. So that's how it works, and that's why I highly recommend this.
Two last questions are a little bit on the compliance, non-functional side of things. Josine, I hope I'm spelling your name correct, asks a little bit of a charge one. How safe is Rovo? Where does the business information I use in my question all end up? In China?
Well, that's that's a great question actually. Like we can safely assume, and I'm not blinking to you to find any help. No, China's is not spying on us on this moment. That depending on if you are believing Atlassian documentation and you overall believe in the general structure and the data safety, then it is as safe as the core Atlassian products that are being included within the system of work. So we don't have to worry if there is anything disclosed or undisclosed. Therefore, there's a very great. They are meeting all of the quotas. They are meeting the requirements that are being stationed by the European Union as well. They can be used in our location. And when it comes to safety on, let's say, general usage, it is all as safe as you have your products and permissions set up. So as I have mentioned a few times during this webinar, if you have if you do not have a certain permission as the end user to access a certain amount of data, then Rovo or Atlassian Intelligence won't help you getting that. You cannot omit the accesses or the way you have your policies structured without this. And that comes not only for your organization, but also for the potential China or other countries for that matter when it comes to reaching out to this data.
I do believe this question is a little bit about data residency as well, like where this model that is actually ingesting the data is being hosted. Do we know the answer to that?
Like it all, of course, depends. Since we are on the cloud environment, it's not even Atlassian itself who is sharing it on this doll. It's the Amazon Web Services. But when it comes to data residency, you can pick up your location depending on your plan and how would you like to process this information. And the information, which models are being used by the Rovo agents, it is also fully disclosed on the Atlassian site. That comes with the, for example, the Google models and all of it that is being rested within the documentation. But what is important there, and which I like to emphasize a lot, and I actually mentioned something that Michael has told about Polish language model. You can connect this tool, you can connect your agents to your own large language model. So if you are in need of the more customized solution and working with those agents AI on a different approach and connect it on your own, you don't want to use necessarily a Atlassian solution, you are also fully eligible to do so. So there are ranges to that, and you can work on that efficiently.
And finally, the last question coming from Bahadir is also a little bit about guardrails. I will read it out loud. Is there a possibility to limit Rovo also in terms of observing other colleagues? For example, how many tickets did colleague XX solve? So I do believe to put that on more general level, can we put some permissions on what or guardrails on what Rovo can talk about or which data does it see?
We do, of course. As I have mentioned before, you have a control over the permissions, and it respects the permissions that you set up in place for your tools as well. So there's a great ranges to that, which sometimes might be even an issue because let's say if you are a new head of the sales department or someone from the marketing that like to take a look at some of the data that, for example, my team has done, then if they don't have an access to this data, like an access to the space, Confluence, or anything like that, they are not added, they won't be able to take that information. The same way that you build your JQL, and I refer to that example because you almost put it like you are working with JQL and Jira. When you ask a question about how many tickets this colleague saves, if you do not have an access to his tickets or his work, you won't be able to see all of this information. It's going to, you can ask the same question, but depending on your permission, whether you are head of the department, team leader, or a team member of this particular team, you are going to see different results, and all of them are going to be based on your permissions.
That's a great answers. And this way we have run out of questions and almost run out of time. Thank you very much for being today with us here. And as mentioned before, feel free to reach out so that we can follow up on those conversations in your environment in a safe manner and see which use cases are the best ones to start exploring.
Thank you. That's true. So, once again, have a great day and hear from you very soon.